Welcome, Namaste and Aloha. We have just heard from Sutta Goswami about the first four incarnations, the Kumaras who taught knowledge through purity, the boar who lifted earth out of the mud, Narada who carried devotion through every realm with his Veena, and Narayana who modeled discipline through endless penance. Now, Sutta continues counting. The next five avatars from the fifth through the ninth form a beautiful arc. They take the inner work of self realization and translate it into the outer work of Dharma, inner science, spiritual instruction, divine service, ascetic example, righteous administration. These are verses 10 through 14 of chapter 3, and together they form a bridge from the cosmic to the human. Hear how Srila Prabhupada renders each one. The fifth incarnation is Lord Kapila, foremost among perfected beings. He gave the philosophy of Sankhya, the analysis of the 24 elements, to Asuri Brahmana because over time this knowledge had been lost. The sixth incarnation was Dattatreya, the son of the sage Atri, born from the womb of Anasuya, who had prayed for an incarnation. He spoke on the subject of transcendence to Alarka, Prahlada, and others. The seventh incarnation was Yajna, the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife Akuti. He took the post of Indra during the period of Swayambhuva Manu, assisted by demigods such as his son Yama. The eighth incarnation was King Rishabha, son of King Nabi, and his wife Merudevi. In this incarnation, the Lord showed the path of perfection followed by those who have fully controlled their senses and who are honored by all orders of life. And in the ninth incarnation, the Lord, prayed for by sages, accepted the body of a king named Prithu, who cultivated the land to yield various produce, and for that reason the earth became beautiful and attractive. Look at the architecture of these five together. Kapila gives us the inner instrument. The mind cannot examine itself without a method, and Sankhya is that method. 24 elements lucidly listed so the practitioner can stand back and see the difference between the seer and what is seen. Dattatreya then arrives as the perfect teacher, born when his mother Anasuya prayed not for personal salvation, but for someone who could light the way for others. He carries the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in one body, and he teaches kings and demons alike. Yajna shows us that the Lord himself will take an ordinary administrative post when a qualified person cannot be found. Imagine that. The Supreme sat in the chair of Indra. Rishabha then walks the most demanding path, the path of Dhiras, those whose senses no longer pull them around. He shows by his own life that human birth is precious because it alone is capable of eternal happiness, and that this happiness is purchased by tapasya, by voluntary penance. And finally, Prithu, the prayed for king, who took office because the previous administration was corrupt. He cultivated the land, fed the people, and made the earth itself beautiful. Inner science, pure teaching, service, discipline, righteous power, five movements of the same dance. Modern life is starving for exactly this sequence. We have plenty of self help, but very little Sankhya, very little willingness to actually study what we are made of. Programs like cognitive behavioral therapy or modern mindfulness training are pointing in this direction, asking us to sit back and observe thoughts as objects rather than as the self. Kapila said this 30 centuries ago and gave us a complete element list. We have plenty of gurus and influencers, but few Dattatreyas, few who teach simply because their mother prayed for them to teach. The Lord becoming Indra in verse 12 is perhaps the most quietly radical idea in the chapter. It tells us that no role is beneath divinity. The teacher who shows up to a struggling classroom, the nurse who covers a third shift, the civil servant who keeps a corrupt city honest, these are people taking the post when no one else will, and the Bhagavatam says God himself does the same. Rishabhadeva is the patron of every modern recovery movement, every athlete who chooses long-term mastery over short-term ease. And Prithu is the answer to bad governance. The book does not say replace politics with spirituality. It says good administration is itself spiritual when it cultivates the earth and feeds the people. Take this practical instruction from the five today. Pick one inner study and one outer service. The inner study could be 10 minutes of Sankhya style observation each morning, sitting with the question, what here is the seer and what is being seen. The outer service could be one act of Dharma in your community this week, however small. A meal cooked for a neighbor, an hour spent at a school, a clean job done at work without complaint. Do not let the inner work become escapism. Do not let the outer work become hollow activity. The five avatars together insist on both. For those of you who are younger, in your 20s or 30s, this passage gives you a permission slip the modern world rarely grants. You are allowed to want both depth and impact. The culture forces a false choice. Either retreat to a meditation cushion and let the world burn, or hustle nonstop and call it purpose. The Bhagavatam shows you a different path through five faces. Be a Kapila in your study. Sit with the elements of your own mind until you can name them. Be a Dattatreya in your friendships. Speak truth gently, and only when you have something tested to say. Be a Yajna at work. Take the role no one else wants and do it well. Be a Rishabha in your habits. Choose the harder right thing more often than the easier wrong thing. And be a Prithu wherever you have authority, in your team, in your home, in your circle. Cultivate the ground around you. Feed the people in your care. For those of you who are older, who carry a longer view, these verses bring something gentler. They tell you that wisdom is not just for the cushion or the cave. The Lord Himself stepped into administration. Your decades of work were not separate from spiritual life. They were the field where spiritual life was tested. Look back at your career, your marriage, your years of raising children or managing a business. Find the Kapila moments, the times you stopped and analyzed before acting, the Dattatreya moments, the times you taught someone with patience, the Yajna moments, the thankless duty you carried because it had to be carried, the Rishabha moments, the discipline you held when no one was watching, the Prithu moments, the little kingdoms you cultivated and made beautiful. These were not interruptions of your spiritual life, they were your spiritual life. The middle of chapter 3 is sometimes called the bridge. It carries us from cosmic creation into human responsibility. Five avatars, five quiet keys, open the door where you are. Thanks, Namaste and Mahalo.